A man simply mixed fluorescent powder into water and stirred it evenly, accidentally discovering an amazing scene. The previously invisible smiley face suddenly appeared under the illumination of ultraviolet light. So the man made a bold decision. He dipped $1 million ancient coin in fluorescent powder and anonymously mailed it to the largest local museum. When the museum curator saw this rare ancient coin, he unsuspectingly picked it up with his hands and began to study it. Little did he know that from the moment he touched the ancient coin, he had already fallen into the trap designed by Kaichi. Next, Kaichi's teammates, carrying cameras, were ostensibly running around the museum taking pictures, but in reality, they were using lasers on a gimbal to shine on the heat-sensing alarm device under the display case. As the heat sensor of display case number 1 in the museum was triggered, the important documents inside were instantly transmitted back to the underground vault by the fully automatic anti-theft device. When the curator learned of this news, he immediately came to the vault and opened the keyboard. Unexpectedly, when he entered the password, the fluorescent powder on his hands was also left on the keyboard. As the curator entered the vault to check the situation, his teammates took the opportunity to sneak into the museum's computer room. Next, they used a cutting machine to cut open the wire duct, inserted the prepared controller into the duct to find the surveillance line, and directly clamped it onto the museum's surveillance line. Once the computer successfully cracked the surveillance authority, the teammates quickly adjusted all the cameras to a still state. Meanwhile, Kaichi disguised himself as a repairman and mixed into the museum under the pretext of repairing the anti-theft device. Next, in the restroom, he took off the repairman's clothes and directly transformed into an ordinary tourist. The reason why Kaichi did all this was to bring the electric drill into the museum. Kaichi calmly entered the ongoing cocktail party, and while someone was shaking hands with the curator, he casually took the goblet from the curator's hand and exchanged it with his own glass. A goblet with only the curator's fingerprints was thus easily obtained. Next, Kaichi took out a self-sealing bag and rushed straight into the restroom when no one was around. Then he dripped the fingerprint extraction reagent onto medical cotton. As the reagent slowly dispersed, the curator's fingerprints became clear and visible. But what followed was the most dangerous operation. Kaichi put on a simulated thumb cover and extracted a clear fingerprint, preparing to use the replicated fingerprint to open the elevator door leading to the vault. If the recognition was incorrect, a large number of special police would directly rush in. Fortunately, the elevator door was successfully opened, but Kaichi still didn't dare to relax in the slightest because there were still 8 minutes until the security patrol time. As time passed, Kaichi finally used the ultraviolet lamp to see the letters on the keyboard. After his teammates learned the letters on the keyboard, they used a computer to crack the correct sequence of the vault password. As Kaichi entered the password, the 10-ton vault door was successfully opened. But just as Kaichi was about to steal the rare Declaration of Independence, his teammates monitoring outside suddenly lost the signal. The sudden, unexpected event caught both of them off guard. Moreover, there were too many screws on the frame, and Kaichi, who had no time to disassemble it, could only take it away together with the frame. But just as Kaichi was waiting for the elevator, the emergency passage opposite was suddenly forced open by someone. It turned out that these people were actually Kaichi's peers in the same trade. But unlike Kaichi, all 3 of them were carrying real guns, ready to directly snatch the Declaration of Independence from Kaichi's hands. Fortunately, the elevator arrived just in time, and Kaichi successfully hid in it. However, because there was still a shocking secret hidden on the back of the Declaration of Independence, Kaichi dismantled it in the elevator and hid it on his body. But just as Kaichi was quietly slipping out of the museum, he was unexpectedly spotted by the curator. However, what no one expected was that even when Kaichi walked out of the museum, the curator didn't stop him because he also wanted to know if there was really a treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence as rumored. So Kaichi took the curator to a secret base, preparing to use all the items on the table to reveal the true image of the Declaration of Independence. But even after the Declaration of Independence was completely soaked in acid water, they still didn't make any discoveries. However, Kaichi's father said they could try heating it. So Kaichi immediately heated the Declaration of Independence, and some strange characters indeed appeared. But they didn't have time to be too happy because this Declaration of Independence was stolen by them from the museum, and they had to obtain the information inside as quickly as possible. So Kaichi prepared more lemon juice to apply on the back, and then used a hairdryer to begin frantically outputting. However, after recording all the information, they discovered that these numbers were not map coordinates at all, but rather design parameters of the US dollar. So Kaichi immediately took out a dollar bill and used the watermark as a magnifying glass. As a result, he indeed found that the time on the back of the dollar bill's Independence Hall stopped at 2:22 in the afternoon, which was similar to some of the results they calculated. So Kaichi and his teammates immediately rushed to Independence Hall and quietly entered the clock tower that was not open to the public. When the clock on the Memorial Hall reached the 22-minute position, Kaichi looked down and found that the shadow of the clock tower was pointing directly at a high wall. So Kaichi quickly ran to the front of the high wall and found a red brick with a special mark. Kaichi directly used a steel knife to dig out the cement. However, after he pulled out the red brick, he found that a pair of antique double-layer glasses was hidden inside. After returning, Kaichi immediately asked his teammates to open the Declaration of Independence. Next, he put on the glasses and observed carefully. On the originally blank paper surface with the enhancement of the glasses, a 3D color picture appeared out of thin air. Moreover, by adjusting the colors on the lens, different hints would appear. But just as Kaichi discovered the location of the treasure, plainclothes special police suddenly arrested Kaichi. Next, they demanded Kaichi's cooperation to find the Declaration of Independence on the charge of stealing it. However, unexpectedly, during Kaichi's pretense of cooperation, the communication equipment of the special police suddenly suffered severe interference. Next, a sightseeing helicopter pretended to pass by Kaichi, but in reality, it was using noise as a cover. As the special police were blown by the strong wind and couldn't open their eyes, a man took the opportunity to come to Kaichi's side and told him that there was someone waiting for him underwater 100 meters ahead. Kaichi suddenly jumped from the aircraft carrier into the water. Just as Kaichi was struggling in the water, a man in black suddenly grabbed Kaichi's feet. Next, he put an oxygen tank on him, started the underwater thruster, and quickly escaped from there. However, after Kaichi escaped, he discovered that the ones who saved him were actually the same peers who had robbed him last time. It turned out that they also knew about the treasure, but just couldn't find any useful clues, so they rescued Kaichi from the police. Moreover, after they learned that Kaichi had already found the location of the treasure, they tied up Kaichi's father and teammates to force Kaichi to join their team. This instantly made Kaichi very angry, but helpless Kaichi could only bring them to the Trinity Church in New York according to the clues. But when they pulled out the coffin inside, they saw that the treasure hunting entrance was right in front of them. After they crawled into the entrance, they found not only the torches left behind for lighting, but also a bottomless wooden ladder. At this time, Kaichi saw a giant oil lamp in front of him, so he used the torch in his hand to ignite it. Although they could see and illuminate all the paths, danger was always present. Suddenly, someone stepped on and broke the wooden path and fell down. Everyone was shocked. As the wooden stairs had been weathered for hundreds of years, they could no longer support their weight. At the critical moment, his teammate directly jumped to the wooden ladder on the opposite side. As the collapse continued from above, they jumped into the relatively safe elevator. But when they reached the end of the tomb, they found that there were only some damaged murals here, and there was no gold and treasure as rumored. This instantly made those villainous peers very angry. Then they wanted to leave them here to starve to death because the two of them were not in the same group as Kaichi. Since the stairs had collapsed, the manual elevator became the only way out. But unexpectedly, as soon as the two people who hijacked them left halfway, Kaichi suddenly discovered a switch to a secret room. With an attitude of giving it a try, he pressed it down, and it actually opened a stone door that had been sealed for hundreds of years. When they went in, they saw that there were all kinds of treasures here, and the value of any single treasure inside was immeasurable in terms of money. But just as they were feeling extremely excited, the boy next to them suddenly started crying because he discovered a spiral staircase, and above the staircase was the exit. In the end, they took away all the treasures and reached the pinnacle of their lives from then on.